Good morning, and welcome to the Universalist Church, in which love is the spirit. We're glad you're here in the sanctuary, or anywhere in the world, especially those visiting or returning after a long time. I'm Joe Wilson, one of your representatives on our Board of Trustees. If you are a visitor, we hope you'll talk with our welcome team or visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more about us. Our guest book or online contact page will help you get onto our electronic mailing list. Our electronic communications are the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church. We're in the season of colds, flu, and COVID, and many more people are feeling ill right now. Masks are always welcome here. We encourage you to stay up to date with your vaccinations. If you are unvaccinated or would like a mask, our ushers have some that we're happy to share with you. After worship, we'll have fellowship in Fifth Call and through Zoom. If you need help finding your way to Fifth Call for our fellowship hour, any member of the church will be happy to guide you. Just look for someone wearing a Universalist Church name tag or follow the herd. We'll all end up for coffee. We are UUs. You can find the link for Zoom in your weekly news or our Breeze calendar. If you aren't getting the weekly news, please sign up for it on our website. And now, I invite you to take a moment to turn off your mobile phones or make them silent, turn off your email, put away those keyboards, and settle in for worship.
Before I light our chalice, I have just one quick announcement, and that is because our first Sunday was the first, and we didn't have so very many people here, we're doing our first Sunday Visitors Coffee on the second Sunday in January. But it will be an opportunity for any of you who are new to the congregation to come meet me and a member of our welcoming team and ask any questions that you might have about who we are and what this place is like. And then after that, we'll go back to doing it on the first Sunday of the month, each month going forward. And now we light our chalice here, and all of you at home, if you have your home chalices together. And we light these as a reminder of the beauty and dance of life, the flickering, sometimes the uncertainty, and what can turn into a bold, strong flame. Although we know that this chalice light will be extinguished at the end of our service today, we also know that we will take it with us, its memory, its dance, holding it in our hearts. We have this moment to dance with the flame and celebrate living, and we take that with us when we leave this place as well. Our opening hymn is number 350 in the gray hymnal, number 350. It's called The Ceaseless Flow of Endless Time. in body or in spirit, please rise as we sing together.
Ceaseless love, endless time, no one can check or stay. We'll view the past with no regret, nor future with dismay. The present slips into the past, a dream like melts away. The breaking of the lost dawn begins anew today. The past and future ever meet in the eternal now, to make each day a thing complete, shall be a new year bound.
Please join me in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant. It's printed in the order of service and in the description online. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
Before our time for all ages, just a couple of quick announcements. We do not have church school today. We are engaged in volunteer orientation for that program through this Saturday. We had our first orientation yesterday. It went very well. I was so pleased. We had a wonderful time and we learned a lot. Our second cohort of folks will be with us next Saturday, and then we will begin church school in earnest next Sunday, January 15th. But today, parents have some options if you'd like to accompany your child up in the family library on the second floor. Also, the nursery is open for ages 0 through 3 years. Before we begin time for all ages, I do want to draw your attention to this fellow who is in your insert. So please take a moment and find this fellow before we begin.
Slowly, slowly, slowly,
Said the sloth. Slowly, 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 a sloth crawled along a branch of a tree.
slowly, slowly, slowly.
The sloth ate the leaf. Slowly, 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 the sloth fell asleep. Slowly, 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 the sloth woke up. All day long, the sloth hung upside down in the tree. All night long, the sloth hung upside down in the tree. Even when it rained, the sloth hung upside down in the tree.
Why are you so slow?
The howler monkey asked one day, but the sloth did not answer.
Why are you so quiet?
The caiman asked, but the sloth did not answer.
Why are you so boring?
The anteater asked, but the sloth did not answer.
Tell me,
Said the jaguar.
why are you so lazy?
The sloth thought and thought and thought for a long, long, long time. Finally, the sloth replied,
It is true that I am slow, quiet, and boring. I am lackadaisical, I dawdle, and I dilly-dally. I am relaxed and tranquil, and I like to live in peace. But I am not lazy.
Sorry, the sloth yawned and said,
That's just how I am. I like to do things slowly, slowly, slowly. And that is the end of this story. We will take a moment to sing our children and their parents out. If they wish, there is no need to leave the sanctuary if you would like to stay. But we're going to sing the song anyway because it's good practice. We will keep a place for you wherever you may go. We'll sustain this home of faith and love you've come to know. Go in peace, bring hope to hearts that yearn. We will keep a place for you till you return. The voluntary offering, the sharing of our resources for our shared work as a religious community, is a spiritual practice for us. By offering your time, talent, and treasure to this community, you help us to serve the members, friends, and wider community of this congregation. And so as part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that do work in the world that bring us ever closer to creating the beloved community. This month, we share our offering with Trans Voice and Visibility 365, also known as TV 365. It's a ministry dedicated to uplifting and supporting the well-being of transgender individuals in Connecticut by providing basic human needs, information and referral, service coordination, and support. It also works to support and collaborate with relevant groups and service providers. Their emphasis is on the most underserved, neglected, victimized, and oppressed. And this includes, but is not limited to, trans folk of color, those with disabilities, trans youth and elders, immigrants, documented and undocumented, low-income trans folk, and those who have been victims of crime. You can find more information about them in your order of service or in our description online, including their website if you'd like to look them up. To give electronically, you can use the QR codes in your order of service or the links in the description online. Those on our website and here in our sanctuary, our offering will now be gratefully received. May these gifts so generously given sustain the life of this community, the work that we do together, and our work in the wider world of which we are a necessary part. Thank you. Thank you. Please rise, in body or in spirit, as we speak our congregational reading. It's number 610 in the back of the gray hymnal, number 610, called The Journey of Love. I'll read the words in Roman type, and together we'll read the words in italics. Where in our hearts is that burning of desire that we are made of dust, and the world is also made of dust, but the dust has motes rising. Whence comes that drive in us? We look to the starry sky and love storms in our hearts. Whence comes that storm? The journey of love is a very long journey. But sometimes, with a sigh, you can cross that vast desert. Search again without losing hope. You may find sometime a treasure on your way. My heart and my eyes are all devoted to the vision. And together we'll sing our doxology.
Praise God for love we all may share. Praise God for beauty everywhere. Praise God for hope of good to be. Praise God for truth that makes us free. Amen.
Please be seated. I don't have anything specific to share with you on behalf of our congregation this morning, but I do know that there are some folks who are still recovering from surgeries or illnesses, people who are celebrating joyful events, wonderful trips to see friends. So let us, in this moment, hold our entire congregation with love in our hearts and our thoughts. It has been a bit since we've used the Lord's Prayer in our service. For those of you who don't know, this congregation spoke the Lord's Prayer every Sunday up until about 8 or 9 years ago. But as the congregation changed, so did its practices. And so today, I'm going to share with you a reimagined version of this prayer. It's adapted from the words of Lala Winkley. Those are in the back of our the back of our hymnal, I should say. But we speak this remembering that this prayer began with a Jewish teacher teaching his followers how to look to God for everyday help. And the words you're going to hear today are not the same as the words most of us have heard before, or even the words that some of us love dearly and some of us have a difficult time hearing altogether. But they express the same sorts of hopes and needs as humans have had throughout history. So may these words remind us that the large and small challenges of every day are worthy of our awareness, are appropriate for us to look for help and understanding, not only to the divine, but to one another as well. Please join me in prayer. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, goodness that is within and among and beyond us. Inspire us. Remind us. Help us to respond so that we can create the most wonderful, just, loving, sustainable existence possible upon this earth. Give us this day and each day enough of what we need. Help us make forgiveness possible when we cause harm. And help us to forgive those who cause harm, knowing that what is broken must at least try to be healed. help us to resist evil, to do good. For we are part of life and love and goodness. And endowed with the power of these glorious things, may we make this world more like paradise, day after day after day. Let us take a moment together in stillness for the prayers of our hearts. May we remember that we are part of life and love and goodness. And endowed with the power of these glorious and wonderful things, may we make this world more like paradise, day after day after day. May it be so. Amen.
Our first reading is from Sloth by playwright Wendy Wasserstein, who writes a parody self-help book in favor of sloth. I promise you, the sloth approach is the most successful life maintenance program. So many of us waste our time being angry at our bosses, our families, our president, our God. The sloth plan, on the other hand, helps us to accept that there is no real hope for change. Power is in the hands of an elite, entitled few, and there's no reason to waste our lives howling in the wilderness. In other words, we can become insane wolves or very happy, sleepy sheep. Sure, someone else is richer, thinner, given a lot more chances because of who they know. But the hell with them. No matter how hard you try, it will never be an even playing field. I say, pin that sloth button on your chest and proudly go to bed instead. Forget about all the shoulds in your life. I should work harder. I should believe in God. I should make more money. I should be more romantically satisfied. I should fit into a size 4, whatever that is. I should have 4 children at Yale. The sloth plan says, have the courage to look should in the face and say, go to hell. I'm not getting up for you. And the energy you'll save by lying around and not fulfilling anyone's expectations, even your own, will make you feel years younger. Everyone who is converted to the sloth plan is re-energized because for the first times in their life, they have the confidence to really rest. Our second reading is from Glittering Vices by Rebecca Condike DeYoung. I should confess that when I started studying sloth, I was fairly confident that that would be the one vice about which I would never have to worry. If anything, I reasoned, I'm too busy, hard working to the point of a fault, and sometimes of a perfectionist besides. Carelessness, apathy, laziness, and lack of effort were definitely not going to be my problem. Well, my fragile bubble of self-righteousness quickly burst, however, when I read a little book that argued that busyness and workaholism were not virtues, but rather sloth's classic symptoms. According to its author, quote, not only can sloth and ordinary diligence exist very well together, it is even true that the senselessly exaggerated workaholism of our age is directly traceable to sloth. It turned out that the apathetic inertia of the lazy person and the perpetual motion of the busy person could both reveal a heart afflicted by this vice, according to the traditional conception. How could this be?
Marie, Fille Marie,
When I came up with this idea to do a sermon series on the 7 deadly sins and connect each one of them to a holiday, I have to tell you it gave me some glee to think about which one connected with which. Most of them, a lot of them, were pretty easy. Gluttony for Thanksgiving, lust for Valentine's Day. But when I thought about sloth, it took me a minute, and then I realized there was only one option. Sloth connects so beautifully to the idea of failed New Year's resolutions that I could not resist. Now, when we hear the word sloth, we associate it with laziness, a passively willful couch potato way of being. But it is more complicated than that. There was a time when instead of the word sloth, when people listed the 7 deadly sins, they talked about acedia, also known once upon a time as the noonday demon, a lethargy that stole away any ambition, any action, any desire to engage with the things that we know are part of the lives that we lead. There's also a little sneaky thing here in that the midday meal was the large meal for most people who lived in monasteries. And I suspect that this was called the noonday demon because that's about when the food coma would hit after eating that massive meal. But acedia, sloth, is more than a daily need for a nap. And if that's your only picture of sloth, it's understandable, but it's not what you think. Other descriptions of this condition, even up until pretty recently, ranged from existential ennui, a vast sense that being was fundamentally boring and pointless, and sometimes continued on to what I would call now clinical depression. An inability to care, to see the point of being, much less doing anything. An overwhelming feeling of impossibility. A disconnection from any and everything that might matter, and a basic lack of pleasure in living. But more insightful writers, though, didn't get caught up in claiming that what we would call depression is actually sin. Instead, they knew that the failures of the spirit at the barely beating heart of sloth are simply apathy, a disconnection from the things in life that truly matter, as well as escapism, a desire to leave behind what is and what matters and what is real in favor of anything else that seems appealing in the moment. And so in Glittering Vices, Rebecca DeYoung writes, I read a little book that argued that busyness and workaholism were not virtuous, but rather sloth's classic symptoms. According to the author, not only can sloth and ordinary diligence exist very well together, it is even true that the senselessly exaggerated workaholism of our age is directly traceable to sloth. It turned out that the apathetic inertia of the lazy person and the perpetual motion of the busy person could both reveal a heart afflicted by this vice. How could this be? Well, it can be because both apathy, inertia, and perpetual motion prevent us from an authentic engagement with our interior spiritual lives and the things that matter most in life beyond ourselves. Both apathy and busyness can distract us from our deepest values, our most important priorities, our sense of wonder, our connection with the spirit of life. So when we take up an attitude, not just in the moment, but repeatedly, perhaps even permanently, an attitude of, I don't care, or find ourselves staying so busy that we don't have time to care, then we have achieved sloth. And it's nothing to do with a nice hammock or hanging down in a tree or a comfy couch. Perhaps we can think of sloth at its very best as a spiritual equivalent of procrastination. Setting aside what needs to be done by doing something else or nothing at all instead. It's not the same as resting. It's not the same as taking time. There are all sorts of things that can fulfill this kind of spiritual procrastination. Looking up sloths online while writing a sermon, for example. Did you know that sloths move so slowly that they can actually grow moss on their fur? If you see pictures of them and they're green, it's because moss is starting to grow on them. And there are many, many, many hours worth of YouTube videos of baby sloths. They are incredibly cute. Joan Chittister, a writer on spirituality and contemplative practice, says in her book, Illuminated Life, the easy thing is to run away from life. Anyone can do it, and everyone at one time or another wants to. Work becomes useless, even destructive if its purpose goes awry. Escapism can be overwork or wasting time, and the destructive side of work and overwork shows up when it draws us away from our relationships, our aspirations, our values, our integrity. I suspect that the Puritans would be appalled to know that the work ethic named for them has in fact given people an excuse for stepping away from seeking meaning, finding God, or attempting to bring paradise back to earth. I don't actually want a show of hands for this right now, but I do want you to think for a moment. Have you ever kept yourself busy rather than deal with something that you know is important? Something calling at you? Something that would challenge or perhaps even benefit you, but would take, frankly, more effort than you felt like putting in? Have you ever stayed longer at work in order to avoid going home? Have you invented or glommed onto a crisis somewhere in order to avoid work or extended family or religious community? Have you ever been too busy to attend to the needs of another or act on your deepest beliefs? I certainly have. But not all busyness is the result of sloth. Not all work is problematic. But when it becomes a habit that keeps us from living a life of attention or spiritual practice or action or integrity. That is sloth. That kind of escapism is a way of not caring, of being disconnected, while allowing ourselves the illusion that productivity is most important. And then there's apathy. It's another way of running away from life, choosing not to care, rather than carrying the joys and the burdens of being alive and human. But plain old apathy is not quite as polite as busyness. In our society, if you say you're busy, people nod and say, "Oh yes, I understand. Of course you can't do whatever it is that we might need you to do." Apathy, though, if you are truly apathetic, you're not going to fill your schedule with endless commitments in order to be able to say no to some things a little more safely. Instead, you're just going to lay it out flat. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Apathy has the dubious virtue of honesty. But really, apathy doesn't even care enough to maintain a facade of politeness. Apathy is not prideful. It's not vain. It just doesn't care. Wendy Wasserstein tells us about this. Forget about all the shoulds in your life. The sloth plan says have the courage to look should in the face and say, go to hell, I'm not getting up for you. And the energy you'll have and save by lying around and not fulfilling anyone's expectations, including your own, will make you feel years younger. So here's where a show of hands, I think, would be fine and perhaps a little less daunting. How many of you have made New Year's resolutions? Okay, some of you. I'm in the I don't do it because I know what happens. How many of you who have made New Year's resolutions have broken them already? Oh, hey, a couple. That's not bad. That's pretty good. How many of you fully expect that you'll break them in the next 6 months? Yeah, there are some more hands. Right. New Year's resolutions can be challenging. And some of us decide to never make them again because we don't want to disappoint ourselves. One of the questions is it sloth that has been your downfall when it comes to these kinds of changes? I want to achieve this, but I'm so busy it's really hard to go back to church, go to school, go to the gym, meditate every day, take up that volunteer task. Sometimes it is sloth that prevents us from doing the things that we know that are good. I'd bet that most resolutions fall by the wayside because of the difficulty of changing a long-standing habit rather than true sloth. And some of us may be a little lazy here and there too. I certainly can fall into that. But sloth, real sloth, wouldn't bother making a resolution in the first place, wouldn't even think about the possibility of a resolution, probably wouldn't notice that it had been New Year's Day that had come past. Because sloth would be deeply committed to doing nothing about anything. Sloth may seem like one of the least problematic of the list when you think about all 7. But like other sins such as gluttony or anger, sloth can have real effects on our physical well-being, not just on our minds and our hearts and our spirits. A small dose of apathy now and then reminds us that we've overdone it, that we need to slow down, that we might have committed to too much or had a week that was too busy, too full, and too hard. Sometimes it is good to say, for today, I don't care. But when it becomes a habit, when it becomes constant, when it becomes a lifestyle, that's when we run the risk of changing how our minds work, how we think, how our bodies work, how we feel. And in fact, real depression, clinical depression, can be the result of that kind of disconnection. We can teach our bodies to not care so much that they just kind of give up bothering. And on the other side, busyness has its own dangers too, including, among other things, the catch-all nervous breakdown. We've done so much that our nervous systems just simply can't handle it anymore, and we find that we have to lay on the couch for a week just to recover. Sloth has the terrible effect of preventing us from really understanding what's happening with ourselves and can lead us into real harm. And that's why it is a deadly sin. In the past, thought of as a soul-killing sin, because it keeps us from paying attention to what matters most. It encourages us to disregard the needs of our spiritual lives, to abandon our principles and our values. Sloth lets us escape from the deepest callings of the sacred and the profound, letting us just skip like flat stones across water rather than ever sinking into it and finding stillness. I am most disappointed in myself when I have frittered away my time and energy in slothful pursuits. And very rarely does that include time taken as a nap. In fact, I should probably nap more often than I do. But then there's YouTube videos of baby sloths to watch. And I mean, how much more restful would a nap be than that? It does not matter how you conceive of the universe. Whether you're a theist or a non-theist, a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a pagan, a Jew, a humanist, a plain old Unitarian Universalist. We all have connections to what we find most meaningful in the universe. And we can all choose to turn away from them in favor of other things. And so when I or you or any of us spend our time and effort like a rock skipping frantically across the surface of water, we are disconnected from those wonderful things. In those times, I miss the moments of caring for others, the beauties that are found in the world, the truths and the whispers of love that I hear in my daily conversations with the all that is. So sloth is not what you think. It's not laziness. Sloth is an absence of love. It's not lazy. It's detached from what is real and what matters most. And what that means is that sloth's antidote is not busyness, it's engagement. Open-hearted, compassionate, empathetic engagement with something that truly matters. Another person, another living thing, the earth itself. Some process of creating justice or mercy. Your connection to the sacred, to the profound, however it is that you understand or name it. Because escapism and apathy cannot coexist with real engagement. Let me be really clear. Engagement doesn't mean doing more. It means listening to the wisdom within yourself and sometimes doing less in order to pay attention more deeply. Knowing what it is that you need to do and why. I suspect that this will sound like familiar advice, and it should. It is the direction to adherence that faith traditions from around the world give all the time. Pay attention, Engage more deeply. Listen to the interior voice. Look for what the world asks of you and needs most. The antidote to sloth is the challenge and goal of the spiritual and religious life, maintaining our engagement with what matters most. And that may be different for each of us. It may be different for each of us in any given day. But it's about that engagement in whatever ways we understand and devote ourselves to it. And this is where the lesson of our friend, the sloth, comes in real helpful. Because this process of engagement does not improve with speed or efficiency or a constant grind, some kind of busyness in your devotion. Ironically enough, this spiritual growth and engagement simply happens over time, by choosing it again and again, by paying attention, by listening. Like the sloth in our story, our own connectedness develops steadily and intentionally, but often slowly, slowly, slowly. Our closing hymn is number 6 in the gray hymnal, Just as Long as I Have Breath. In body or in spirit, please rise as we sing together.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with me I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Let us join together in speaking the words of our unison benediction. It's in your order of service. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. Please be seated. Please also remember that we have our visitors' time with me and a member of the membership team. We'll do that in the parlor that is out the sanctuary toward the back and all the way to the left down the hallway. If you want to wait up here, you will find myself. I can lead you there. And also, who are my welcome team members leading that today? Aha, Iraj is one of them. So if you want to follow Iraj as well, that would be terrific. Thank you very much. And now let's remain for our postlude.